Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out today's broadcast. My name is Jonathan, and today is day 444 of my 3 year challenge to lose 300 pounds. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, a little bit about me. I'm 39 years old. I'm married, and we have 4 children together. I have been overweight my whole life, and in 2020, I got to a point where I was over 500 pounds and I knew I needed to do something. And so I created this channel. When I created the channel, I had two main goals in mind. The first goal is that I have not really been able to stick with a diet long term. A lot of times in the past, I would say, hey, I'm going to try to lose as much weight as I can before this event coming up. Or, I am able to maintain a diet for 6, 7, 8 months, but then I just am not able to keep up with the low restrictive calorie in, calorie out parts of the diet. And I kind of end up falling off or going back to the old habits. And so I knew I needed to challenge myself to kind of commit and do this longer than I've ever done any kind of diet or plan or program before. And so that's why I challenged myself to focus on my weight for 3 years. The other big part of this is that I, a lot of times, would set, you know, what I thought were realistic goal weight losses, like, hey, I needed to lose 50 pounds or lose 100 or get under 350 pounds. And I would a lot of times hit those goals. I would stay motivated long enough to hit those goals. But when I would end up looking at myself, I would feel great about reaching my goal, but I would still really at a very heavy weight. I was still very overweight. And so I knew that, I need to get to my goal weight and then I need to maintain my goal weight. So that's why I, chose or challenged myself to lose 300 pounds. So far, everything has been going awesome. I have been able to lose almost 200 pounds in just over a year and I am eating currently a whole food plant-based diet with no added salt, oil, or sugar. Uh, Occasionally, an event or a rare and appropriate thing will come up, like my anniversary yesterday, where we will have some salt, oil, sugar, but we are still working or staying with no animal products in our diet. If you guys enjoy my videos, make sure you do get subscribed to the channel, like this video, share it with people. If you know anybody that is looking for weight loss support or trying to figure out weight loss and they have a lot of weight to lose, and then comment below any questions. I'd love to hear your guys' non-scale victories, things like that. So, guys, I hope you guys all had a great evening. We had an awesome evening coming on and doing the live stream with you guys, or, on here and kind of just talking a little bit about our history with, you know, weight and what's going on with everything um, in our lives. So, if you guys are interested in seeing Carrie, make sure you go to yesterday's video, check that out, and let us know what you think of the video. Um, we ended up we talked about it a little bit on this at the end of the stream, but we did end up getting food out last night. Uh it was just going to be really the easiest thing to do, and it's really hard to get away from that celebrating with food. But we don't regret it at all. I really enjoy we ended up getting vegan pizza from a local place here, and it was great. Anthony saying hello. Hello, Anthony. I hope everything's going great with you today. Uh, we uh, we had that kind of for dinner last night. The kids were hungry kind of when we got home too, so some of them shared that with us. But it was uh, kind of just we want after this stream. By the time we got picked the kids up and got home, it was really time to wind down, and I did have one of our kids, I don't know if they got a hold of the sugar jar at grandma's house, but she had no interest in going to bed. I was up till about 2 a.m. trying to get her to go to sleep in her own bed. Uh, just kind of dealing with that, but it was still a good evening. After having that big dinner last night and going off diet, I knew the scale was not going to be my friend today. And in the past month, I have been not eating breakfast on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm going to continue that this week. I may even cut out dinner tonight and just fast until the weigh in tomorrow, depending on how I feel. And I probably will have juice. I won't do a water fast. I would probably juice fast between now and tomorrow night. It really depends on what Carrie says we're having for dinner, because something like a salad really isn't that much weight, and it might help get anything going through me that is backed up. Because I've mentioned it a little bit this past week, is that I just don't feel like I'm eliminating everything that I'm putting in my body, or not doing it at a very rapid pace. One of the things I am um excuse me. Um I have been wondering, after listening to Fiber Fueled, and I don't really feel like there's anything wrong with the natural sweeteners that are in these carbonated waters I'm drinking. But that is one thing that I haven't kind of cut back out of the diet, that and started drinking more just fresh, clean water. And so I feel like I need to get back to drinking regular water more again, um, when I drink water. Like, that's the other kind of odd thing about this diet, is that I feel like I get so much water from the fruits and the vegetables that I eat, that I find it hard to or I don't find it hard. I drink when I'm thirsty. I don't find myself as thirsty as I used to find myself. Back before I started this diet, I would drink entire 6 packs of Diet Pepsi, um, of bottles. Like, we would get like the 16-ounce or the 20-ounce bottles, and I would drink at least an entire 6 pack of those a day. And now on this diet, um, when I wasn't drinking the natural flavored waters, I was having a cup. I was having probably 2 to 4 glasses of water a day. And now that I am drinking these waters, I am drinking more than that amount of water. I'm having some water, like when I take B12 supplements, and then I'm also having at least 4 cans of this soda a day, because I have two. I usually take two with me to work, and then I have at least two when I'm at home. So that is one of the things I've thought about cutting out of my diet, see if it helps with any of the digestion issues I'm maybe imagining. I like, it's weird. Like, I don't know if it's uh people always talk about feeling bloated, and I don't know if what I sit here and I think about, like, maybe I don't know what not bloated feels like, or I didn't know what not bloated feels like, and maybe I'm bloated now. But uh, how many times can I say the word bloated in a sentence? Um, so, anyways, that's kind of what I'm doing with food. I think I'm probably gonna fast until I weigh in tomorrow. I think it's the only way I'm gonna have a weigh in that I don't want to just rip my hair out on. But I also feel like if I am having any issues with food processing, it might be because my body is taking its time, or there's something there that it's working on. So if I give it a shot, a chance to work out and do what it needs to do, kind of give it that break I talk about, with the fasting windows, and having periods of the day where your body isn't working on digesting food constantly. Um, so that's that. I have been listening to the book, The Future of Nutrition by Colin Campbell. I think I'm 3, maybe 4 hours into the book. It might be one of my new favorite books that I've read since switching over to this diet. Um, and it isn't because the book is spelling out how to eat this diet or how to be successful on this diet. So far, and I guess maybe I'm a third, uh, I'm sure I'm more than a quarter of the way through the book. And this is just what I've learned from the book so far. And I also listened to the book Whole by Colin Campbell. And having listened to that first and then now listening to this, there are some things that kind of puzzle piece together with timelines. He also, I feel like when I listened to the book Whole, he talked a lot about the cancer production with the AF. Um, they studied the AF molecule or AF uh, something as a cancer causing agent. And so but also listening to kind of all the other stuff I've listened to and the different things that I've kind of absorbed over the past year. And the biggest thing, it pisses me off to listen to this book, to hear what this guy is spelling out. And I mean, it's wild. It's just wild what has happened over the past, however, over 100 years with the nutrition system in our country and the way it's presented to the people and what is taken for granted that we don't realize is happening, and the book is doing a great job of kind of creating these uh this timeline and kind of showing where different characters, you know, their actions or their roles, them being in certain roles and then seeing how the policies that were being made, uh, seeing, what policies were being made based off of the person that was in charge. And so I kind of I actually wrote down a bunch of notes here, to go over what essentially has been happening. And it really kind of starts with when they discovered what protein was. And from this book, the one of the early discoveries that they talk about is that they were doing a study on a canine and they found that the canine would die if it wasn't given a specific nutrient. And so then that gave rise to the idea that there are essential nutrients. There are things that have to be in the diet in order to survive. So then that really is kind of what was the birth of nutritional studies, or like the word nutrition might have existed before that, but like that's when they started looking at what are these essential things that everybody has to have to kind of live. And so then, you know, that's when like groups of academics started to get together, whether they were surgeons or doctors or they were professors of research, or even one example, like a statistician, like gets involved with kind of looking at um what's going on with the population in regards to nutrition. The surgeons are looking at cancer and saying that the scalpel is the best solution, where the biologists are looking at it and saying that the radiation therapy is the best solution. And So there's all kinds of these different academic groups that are doing these studies, and they're coming to different conclusions. Sometimes those conclusions had a bias going in. If a surgeon is looking at it, they might look only see the surgical solutions. Um, and then there's also the development of like cancer societies that's happening. And this is all like in the early 1900s, kind of 100 plus years ago, that these things are starting to first develop, and kind of it's the and then also like those organizations are doing research, and everybody at this time in like the 1900s is really just trying to get that social recognition from their peers, and they're trying to discover, there's a lot of discovery going on, and that's kind of uh you know, the outside starts seeing this, and then somebody, says, "Hey, we found that this causes this," or by having, then people want to know more about that, like, and then as a population, we step in and say, "Hey, if you're finding out things that are going to help us live, then we why would so then the people start funding it, like they develop programs that, like, the National Institute of Health, that organization, I don't know what its first origin was, but the National Institute of Health is who now kind of takes the public's money, the government gives them the money, and they decide which programs get the funding and what we want to research, what do we want to learn about, and or they take applications from people that say these are the things we want to study, and they look at it and go, well, if you think there's a correlation there, maybe that's worth looking into. And so the government creates these research groups, and it's all for good intention. There's nothing nefarious about the development of the National Institute of Health, and really all of those academic societies and the cancer societies in their development. There was all great intentions for what they were, for their purpose. Um, but then, you know, that what happens is once the government then steps in and starts offering funding, then all those groups are now competing with each other for that funding. So those groups that already had their own biases, like I said, the surgeons towards doing surgery versus the biology doing chemotherapy, and then they start knocking each other too. Like they're like, "Hey, ours is doing this, but but we want the money. It's all about, we need the money. So we have to make ourselves look better so that you decide to send the money towards our group." And um so then it really kind of gets jumbled once you start adding money into that. Uh but also kind of what's happening at the same time is that they are doing studies, and they are coming out with results. They're doing these studies, and they're saying, that you need vitamin D or you need these nutrients. And then what the private industry starts seeing is that every time the government makes an announcement for, you need more omega-3 fatty acid, then the private industry see, oh my gosh, there's a huge spike in our omega-3 sales, and we got all these people wanting omega-3. So then they jump on it and they make the money. And it's not just the private industries, or I guess they are private industries, but it's also the pharmaceuticals too, because like the studies that were done that found out that taking a little blue pill for your heart also caused you to get hard, that was funded by somebody and found out, and then that becomes, then that there's an industry that's built behind that. But then this goes so far back. Like I said, this goes back into the early 1900s, and then really into like the 1940s, when the first some of the first public policies were being made. But like, even like the Tylenols and the aspirins, those were originally pharmaceuticals that we eventually, or that we allow to be sold kind of over the counter. But it's all, all of these kind of industries are benefited by the studies that are done, that are paid for by the general public. And it creates a few different kind of things to happen. And this book's going over, like I said, I'm just getting into this book too, and I feel like he's covered so much. But it does it one of the things, it causes the deletion of people from history. There are people who did studies that found results that were not what were desired, and they quit getting funding after they came up with results that weren't beneficial or that weren't desired. Or they were ostracized, because when you have these groups that you created, these cancer kind of organizations, and these heart disease organizations in these different places, is there is a bit of like this group think thing that happens. People, when they get together, they they have a harder time. Like, if you're in a group of 10 people and you're looking at a board and everybody says that the dot is yellow and you think it's orange, you're not going to raise your hand all the time, because why would I be the only person out of the other 9 that sees an orange dot when everybody sees a yellow dot? Uh, and so then it hushes people's voice. Um, and really, kind of what has happened is that in the discovery of the need for protein, which is not denied by anybody that we need protein, the word protein became synonymous with animal protein. And so, even when they talk about these studies in the book, they say the word low protein diets. And what they mean is low animal protein diets, because those people are still having to eat food, and all foods have some amount of protein in them. So when they say it's a low protein diet, it's low animal protein diet. And in the case of this book, a lot of the studies he mentions, the people that are eating these low protein diets are having health improvements. And but right now what's happened is protein is winning that group think argument. And it's been winning that argument for the past 50 years, you know. And then the other kind of thing that happens as a result of the way our system is set up is that private industry and the pharmaceuticals see the fluctuation in their sales based on the studies that are happening and based on the findings that are coming out. And so those industries are finding ways to influence the studies that are being done. And the way they're doing that is they are donating to universities and to research laboratories large amounts of money, or the money to build wings to their agriculture division, or other huge amounts of money. Like, we're not talking the $200 most whatever you can donate as a person to a business, but we're talking in the millions of dollars. They're building infrastructures on these campuses. And so then the schools have to look at the fact that they just had $1 million donated by somebody, let's say, I don't even know, but let's say Arthur AE or one of the milk producers donates the money to build a facility on your property to just study dairy. Then as a university, how do you say no? How do you tell that industry, no, we don't want your millions of dollars to add to our bottom line, to add whether it's um and then there's studies that they're doing that we don't see the results from, like every study. And I'm not exactly sure how the release of public information happens or things like that, but um there's studies a lot of times that happen that if there was a hypothesis at the beginning of that study that eating animal protein was good for you, and they found out 2 weeks into a 4-month long study that these people were having severe side effects from eating the diet that they were doing, they would cancel that study, but then that just disappears into the ether. Nobody ever sees any results because that was an uncompleted study. And then there's also completed studies where they get through it and they're like, well, this doesn't look good for the dairy industry. The dairy industry just gave us $4 million to build this building. So if we release this information, it is going to hurt the dairy industry. Um, and so who makes that decision? Who's making those decisions? Why is there any place where that private industry can touch or influence the money that's coming from the public, the population? Also, another thing that we have willingly funded, which is again nothing nefarious in the inception or in the kind of implementation, but we're paying for them to do research on behavioral studies to find out what is our bliss points, like what causes people to purchase more if we make the bag this color, if we put the ingredients on it um in this way, or like the advertising, if we put a big sign on the top right hand corner that says no GMOs, does that just having a logo on the top right hand corner, does that influence the purchasing? Does that cause somebody to buy more of this? The idea of having products at kids eye level as they go through the produce store, the idea of having the staple items in the back of the store as opposed to the front. This is all behavioral studies that have been done, some by private industries, but some by academics, especially like I always go back to when I was in elementary school. Where I live is not too far from the University of Iowa campus, or it's a half hour, 45 minutes. And one of the things that we would do as, I don't know what grade, I feel like it was like 6th grade. It had to have been elementary school, thinking back. But we would take a field trip to Iowa City because there was the university campus was there, and we would do kind of a tour of parts of the campus. And um one of the things that they used to uh go on about, I guess, or it was obviously I remember this from the trip, is that in the University of Iowa, I think it's Carver Hawkeye Arena, the guest locker room is painted pink. And it has been painted pink intentionally because through research that's been done, they found that the color pink creates a certain aura, I guess, in a room or a vibe in a room that is less intense than a room that is painted a different color. And so they've chosen to paint that room pink. And at the time they talked about how there were teams that would come in and they would put white paper on the walls. Like they would have somebody come in before the team could come in to cover the walls so that the pink wouldn't be showing. And that's been happening for decades. That it's not just the studies of the nutrition that's going on and all of the influence that private industry has on that, but it also they're doing behavioral studies and they're using that information to get you to spend more money, to get you to buy more product. And 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 in the end, one of the things that and they haven't talked about it in this book yet, but I believe they talked about it in whole, is the whole system is completely incestuous. The people that are there's the people who are holding the political office are also the same people who are lobbying the those politicians when they're not, either before they're a politician or after they're a politician, they go into lobbying. They also are the people that end up being on the chairs of these private industries or these corporations. They end up being the CEOs and they hold board member positions at these industry organizations that are food and pharmaceutical related. And I think I read in one of the books that it's upwards of like 30% of those people are the same people. If you took that whole population of politicians, of lobbyists, of the maybe not politicians, but the lobbyists for these food and drug organizations, the people that run the food and drug organizations, those leaders, 30% used to hold political office is what I believe it comes out to. And that's just crazy, the influence that that has. And again, every one of those little pieces, nothing, finding the answer, the solution to cancer, there's nothing bad about trying to do that, trying to find the essential nutrients that we need in our body. There's nothing wrong with that. Finding out what causes people to have a calmer demeanor, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you can use those things to your advantage, that's when it becomes an issue. And then also, in all of this, what happened in the 1940s is that we had the creation of the food recommendation. There was a lot of examples before I was born, but I can remember since I've been alive, the food pyramid, the my plate, and I don't even know what they are called now, but um just the development of these food groups and then the recommendation of the consumption of those food groups by our government. Our government makes those recommendations based off of the studies that they are funding and are doing. These studies are being funded by the government, but also the private industry in the background in some cases too. And that's where it gets very confusing because then the results matter. The results that they get from the studies make a difference because they are affecting the purchasing decisions of the populace because we believe, or it's been the general belief, that our government is on our side and that they are acting in our best interest is what is the hope, like that's the that's why we pay taxes, is that we hope they're spending the money. That's why they were created. Anyways, I'm going on about this part. And just knowing all of this now is crazy because I'm sitting here and I'm talking about all this, and I suppose I knew bits of this all before too, but it was never put into this timeline. This, in the late 1800s, 1900s, they discover protein. And then that's what develops these research facilities and these academics. And then that creates the government to get involved because we want to do what's best for the people. And then we give that money to our academics, to our colleges, to our research facilities, these people that are doing this. But then on the side, there's other things going on. And that's kind of where it starts to get, once the government starts throwing their money into it, that's when it starts getting a little fuzzy there. So Carrie said sliding in at the end of the day, busy day. Yeah, it's I hope everything's been going great today. But yeah, so that's just kind of my 20-minute rant on the really, that's just like my 20-minute rant on the history of the nutrition. It's funny because this book, The Future of Nutrition by Colin Campbell, that I'm reading, has been completely about the history of our nutrition that I never knew existed. And he even says in the book that he talks to academics who were in the colleges that these studies were being done. There was one from Yale specifically, that there was somebody that was at Yale that they didn't know that these studies were being done that came out with these results that they were actually looking for when they were at Yale, because they were in athletics. And it's just wild that like he was at Yale at the same time these studies are happening. He never heard about those people doing those studies or the results from those studies. Um, and just how, even in the book, again, another example that he gives is that there's a book he finds in a library that in 80 years, nobody had ever checked that book out of the library. So that had some studies that were kind of, they were outliers. They got results that were not the normal. And that's something that I believe Colin Campbell talked a lot about in the book Whole, that he likes to study the outliers. And because that's kind of where the change is happening, that's so that is my rant on those things. I went a little bit long here today. I do hope you guys all have a great evening. If you did like my rant about what is going on with our food system and nutritional system, let me know. It is really kind of one of the things I'm most interested in finding out. The fact that we had to take tests when we were in 5th or 6th grade that said, hey, this is, the food you're supposed to eat. This is the diet that everybody should have. And then now, 30 years later, finding out that the people that were making those decisions, and I didn't even go over that at all, but they were sometimes just the best guess they could give. And that's really scary. When, or the recommendations come out and they're very skewed. They don't represent what the data actually showed, but they represent what the policymakers felt was actually attainable by the population. They make that decision on their own, though. Like, that is kind of some of that difficult. So anyways, I'm out of here, guys. I'm leaving. I will be back on tomorrow for weigh-in Wednesday. I'll try not to cry live on stream, but I do believe that knowing what my weight is and hitting the scale is an important part of this process. Um, and I know that there's different views on that, but I have found that it is the best way to keep me going and keep me motivated towards losing weight all of the time. Um, and if I didn't weigh in today, I wouldn't know that I am a ridiculous amount of weight up from last Wednesday, and I might make decisions that aren't, I could make better decisions, and this just helps me reinforce that I should make those better decisions. So yes, tomorrow will be weigh-in Wednesday. If you guys haven't subscribed already, make sure you do get subscribed to my channel. Tricked you there, I bet. Make sure that you click on that bell icon, turn on notifications. You get alerted when I go live, which is generally around 4 p.m. on weekdays. And two last things now. I got two things now because of Carrie. The first is, if you haven't started your diet yet, get started right now. There's no reason to wait. There's no event that's coming up. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony says congrats on 13 years. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for checking out the stream yesterday. The Get started right now. There's no reason to wait. There's no event coming up that's more important than your health. There's nothing that is going to be, so important that you would have to break your diet for it all the time. Like a year from now, that same event comes up. Are you going to let it have the same influence it has on you before you even started your diet? Like there may be an event like our anniversary that we do, and for us, slipping on our diet is allowing salt, oil, and sugar into the diet, which is standard fare for 99.9% of the population. So I'm not too concerned about the fact that we let salt, oil, and sugar come into our diet. But get started right now, guys. That's the big thing, is get started right now. Nobody gets to their goal and says, gosh, I wish I would have started later. They all say they wish they would have started sooner. The other thing that I have to say is go all in. Do it. Commit. 100% commit to what you're doing. If you're going to do something, don't just dip your toe in the water. It is a myth. The myth of moderate change exists. You can moderately try things. You can say, hey, I'm going to do a meat-free Monday. That's great. And it's cool to try those things to find out if you can do it. But if you're going to do a whole food plant-based diet, commit. Go all in. Don't say, I'm going to try doing a whole food plant-based diet. You make the decision one time and do it. Don't fight yourself over it for weeks until you finally decide to fully commit. And I highly recommend doing a whole food plant-based diet, guys. It is incredible. It has changed my life. So I'm going to get out of here. Get started right now. Go all in. Don't half-ass it, guys. Go all in. You guys all have a great day.